Welcome to the week two go-to session. This is the second session we're holding out of four. So thanks to those who are in attendance, we have better turnout this week. I think we got about 10 people here, which may not sound like a lot, but it's approximately 25% of the total roster. Not everybody can make it for the 7 p.m. schedule. I never know. I think evening is the best. But yeah, some people can't make it. Some people may just prefer to watch the video on their own time because they can stop and start and get up and microwave a burrito and then come back and watch a little bit more and then go walk the dog and come back and watch a little bit more. But you'll get it. Those of you here in attendance will get it done in one fell swoop. I do want to say, okay, so I'm still grading your worksheets. My goal is to have them done by 5 p.m. tomorrow. So I'm going to be grading tonight and morning and afternoon tomorrow. Um, the other stuff actually looked really, really good. So just about everybody's weekly response was strong. Actually, I don't think anybody got like lower. Well, maybe there were one or two, but almost everybody got A's, and a few people got B's simply because like they either did an awesome job summarizing the readings, but not the lecture, or vice versa. And I think I mentioned in week one, they're both important, but the lectures are more important because the assignments in this class can't be guessed at. The week one worksheet, I do remember saying this last week. Remember I said something like, sometimes people just look at it and say, oh, wow, 10 questions. I just got to answer them. How easy. But then if they haven't watched the lecture, they don't know what to look for in the ad, and they produce thesis statements that aren't thesis statements, etc. And that can affect their grade. The assignment for this week is an outline. Now, the good news is the outline you don't have to create from scratch, right? Actually, let me open up a blank document real quickly. I got 10 million Word documents open, but let's open one more. Okay. Right. An outline has Roman numerals. If you need to make subpoints, use capital letters, and then I think it goes to small, like non-numeral numbers, and it goes to lowercase. And then I think it goes to something else. I forget. Anyway, you don't have to do any of that. A long time ago we used to, but yeah, students weren't sure how to go about creating the outline. I don't say that as a criticism or a mocking thing. I don't usually do outlines either very much. But yeah, the outline has been created for you. You just have to fill it in. But there are some serious pitfalls, cautions you have to be careful of. So actually, I'm going to do things a little bit different this week. I'm not going to begin with the slides. As a matter of fact, when we get to the slides, I'll probably end up kind of racing through them because I'll almost certainly make the points I need to make as we look at the outline itself. But anyway, keep doing a great job with the journals. Remember, they're like informal quizzes. I just want proof that you completed the readings and watched the lecture. I'm happy to hear whatever thoughts, opinions, reactions you have to make. That's awesome. But yeah, at the same time, make sure that you show evidence that you've completed the assigned readings and watched the lecture. If you do that, really, I'm so happy just to enter 100 and move on. So take advantage of those easy points. Okay, so we're in week two, right? So we're here. Same thing. You got another weekly journal. You got another Achieve module. And the main activity for this week is the outline. Okay, so we're just going to show the outline assignment and jump right in to explaining what it is and how to do well and things to be careful of. Okay, so you can read all this stuff on your own. I know this will seem haphazard because I'm jumping back and forth. I'm going to talk about research in the second half of this lecture, but I do want to point out real quickly, you need 3 sources for this assignment. Okay, 3 things that you either quote from or that you discuss in your own words, but it's clearly coming from a source, so you still have to cite it. But one of the 3 sources has been provided for you if you want to use it. It's this video right here, Pathos, Ethos, Logos, and Advertising. Yeah, so if you use this video as one of your 3 sources, you just got to find 2. Easy peasy. Please, though, if you use this video as one of your sources, which you are more than happy, or more than encouraged to do, please do something more interesting with the video than just tell me that pathos is the appeal to emotion. Like, you could have written that without watching the video. So, yeah, watch the video and try to find something in the video that kind of connects to your ad. Anyway, you can read all this stuff on your own, but let's take a look at the assignment itself, okay? You have a sample outline to look at using the Jeep ad that we looked at last week. You have a completed outline, so you can refer to that as a model. You also have a previous student's example. If you click on this link, every single assignment, major assignment, comes with examples. The Jeep materials I wrote, I think I mentioned this last week as well, so I'll just mention real quickly that I wanted to see what it was like to complete the assignments that I give to my students. I was even confident that I could just bang it out right in an hour or two, and 12 hours later, I was still working on the Jeep essay. But this week, yeah, you have an outline example, and you can see this is clearly marked. Outline template. Use this to complete assignment. So let's open that guy. And actually, before I get into this and explaining this, let me make things really basic. And I apologize that this is so basic that it seems borderline insulting, but I think most students are going to find this worthwhile. So last week we talked about thesis statements, right? Remember I said that it ultimately follows a structure of the blank ad uses blank, blank, and blank. Okay. So imagine if you had to write like a really basic essay, take yourself back to elementary school or junior high, the first day of class, just to get you back in the field things. The teacher says, please write a 5-paragraph essay about what you did over the summer. So at its simplest, a thesis for that kind of paper could be something like, this past summer, I traveled, spent time with friends, and what's the third thing you could do over the summer? Hung out at the pool. Okay. So again, you're not writing such a basic, uninteresting paper, but okay, this is at its most basic. This is what a thesis kind of looks, right? You're listing the 3 things you did: travel, spent time with friends, hung out at the pool. So what we're aiming for in this class, again, you're not writing this vacation essay, but you are writing an ad analysis. But it's the same logic, okay? So keep this in mind, because this is what the outline template is asking you to do. It's just more in depth. So 5 paragraphs, an introduction paragraph. Okay, so that's paragraph number 1, where you'll make some sort of opening move. You will briefly describe the ad, give some sense of what the ad is and what it's about, and end with your thesis. Okay, so kind of like 3 things. If we look at the Jeep essay, okay, so here's the completed essay. We'll look at the Jeep outline as well. But that's what I do here in this opening paragraph. Okay, so all of this is like my opening move. Here. Okay. Jeep, the well-known brand, practically markets itself with its reputation for ruggedness, independence, and adventure. And then I found a nifty quote from this guy who said that Jeep is the most copied brand of American vehicles, and I cite it in APA format. And then I basically just continue to riff on the image of Jeep, right? Because Jeep is so well known that we have even if it's a stereotypical picture, we have a sense of what Jeep sort of represents or symbolizes, which is what I do here with, the Jeep spirit and the loyalty this motor car inspires is hardwired into our cultural consciousness. One can easily picture a driver behind the wheel of a Jeep, downshifting around a snaking mountain bend, or kicking up dust through the sun-baked Australian outback, or zooming past zebras grazing the Serengeti. Okay, and then I get into the brief description of the ad. Because remember, the reader of this essay is the general reader. Okay, it's like a stranger. I should be able to pull a stranger off the street. Or imagine that you accidentally leave a paper behind, okay, on the library table or the cafeteria table, and someone comes across it. That person should be able to read your paper from start to finish and not stumble. So yeah, the person, it's nice to give them just a brief overview. Now note, this is not what you did in the worksheet. Remember, the worksheet asked for a detailed summary of the ad, as if you were explaining it to someone who's never seen it before. And it even encourages you to identify important features. That's not this, okay? The introduction is a general paragraph. It's just setting the table for the rest of the essay. This is not the place to start getting into the 3 specific things you noticed in the ad. Remember, I stressed that in week 1, the importance of 3. Identify 3 moves that the ad makes, 3 strategies that the ad employs, 3 decisions that the ad's creators have made. So here's my brief overview. And if you've been reading it out loud, maybe as I've been talking, you can see it's just a 3 or 4 sentence description. And then highlighted here is my thesis. Through the use of simple color, 1, imagery, 2, and a double meaning tagline that reinforces theme, 3. The see whatever you want to see ad appeals to the inner adventure inside everyone, okay, to get them excited about Jeep. And again, the thesis sets up the whole paper because we've got our 3 talking points. So talking point number 1, the ad's use of color. So here's an entire paragraph about the ad's use of color. Here's the topic sentence. The topic sentence does not have to be the first sentence, but it often is. It's kind of like the thesis for that individual paragraph. It's letting readers know, oh, this paragraph is about the ad's use of color. And that's what I discussed for this entire paragraph here. Remember the Jeep ad from last week? It had that beige background. It was reminiscent of Canvas. And I get into all this here. Again, I'm not going to read the essay out loud. You will have this essay for week 3, by the way, because next week you write the essay draft. But I get into the color and the fabric quality of the background and why that's not an accident, okay, for it reinforces Jeep's image. Then I move on to my second point, which is the Jeep's use of imagery. My third point, the tagline. And finally, a conclusion, which is sort of like it echoes the introduction. You find a way to echo your thesis using different language. So the ad's basic elements, color, imagery, wording, in other words, tagline, produce results. Okay, so it's just the introduction is a general paragraph that sets up the essay. The conclusion is a general paragraph that closes down the essay. All this makes sense, right? I mean, some people have had the 5-paragraph essay thing before. They've been introduced previously to the idea of like a 3-prong thesis, right? This paper will discuss A, B, and C, and then you have separate paragraphs for A, B, and C. So keep that in mind. Same thing with a basic thing like what you did over summer vacation. Introduction. Actually, let me just do this about the summer vacation one. Here, you would not mention an ad, of course. But you might, I don't know, talk about vacations in general. Right? And find some way to narrow things down to your thesis. And then your second paragraph would be about thesis point number 1, travel. The next paragraph would be about your second point, time with friends. And your third point would be swimming pool. And then finally a conclusion. Okay, so keep this in mind because you're doing the exact same thing. It's just, a bit more complex because we're talking about ad analysis, not what you did over the summer vacation. Now, the reason why I say this, and maybe it seems like I'm belaboring this point, because let's look at the outline template. Here, let me close this so it doesn't get in my way. So here's a blank version of the outline. And again, you can read these instructions up top. But each Roman numeral represents one of 5 paragraphs. So Roman numeral 1 is your introduction paragraph. So we are setting up the introduction paragraph. And it asks for 3 things, which I've just discussed. A 1-sentence hook, enticing your audience to read more. In other words, just give me a 1-sentence preview of how you think your essay might begin. It might change. You might come up with another idea for how you want to begin, but I want you to start thinking about how your essay will start, okay? What the opening line might be. That's what I mean by hook. You'll develop the hook, okay? It's not going to be a single sentence, just like in the Jeep essay, right? Jeep, the well-known brand, practically markets itself. But I continue riffing on that idea, okay? But for the outline, you just need that opening sentence. That's all I ask for. Second, a concise description of the ad, just 2 or 3 sentences, or 4, okay? But you keep it short. Again, this is for the general reader, so they have a sense of what the ad is about. We cannot assume that they have seen the McDonald's ad first day or the Call of Duty ad for Black Ops. It might seem like everybody in the world should be familiar with Call of Duty and that specific ad, but you don't know that. And finally, your thesis, right? This is where your thesis should appear with your 3 discussion points. Now, you do need my feedback on the worksheet. That's why I am under pressure to get it done by 5 p.m. tomorrow, so that you will have the rest of the day tomorrow, plus Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all day Sunday, to take that feedback and then work on this outline. And most importantly, I need to make sure that everybody has a working thesis. Everybody has a clear thesis that lists 3 things that will work well for this assignment. And then the rest of the outline, you're essentially doing what I explained with the simple summer vacation example, okay? So Roman numeral 2, that's your first body paragraph. Essay, when we get to the essay draft, you're going to have 5 paragraphs. So it asks for the topic sentence, identifying the first specific rhetorical strategy. That's just fancy speak for give me a topic sentence for your first your thesis' first discussion point. So here, let's look at I'll go back and forth between the blank example and a completed one. So here's the example. You have this in the activity. So here's my one sentence hook, right? The one I just read out loud. Here's my concise description. I think I've written 4 sentences. That's fine, but just nobody wants to read through a ginormous paragraph that's explaining every nanosecond that occurs in the ad. Okay, the reader doesn't need that. The reader just needs the gist. And finally, my thesis, the same thing that I just read out loud in the essay version. My 3 points are color, imagery, tagline. So Roman numeral 2 asks for a topic sentence, identifying your first thesis point. So my first thesis point is color. So here's my topic sentence. The ad is an exercise in simplicity, especially in its use of color. Then, again, you have to provide more detail. This is not a simplified outline like I did with the summer vacation. So 1 main point you plan to make in support of this topic. A second main point you plan to make. Okay. I think that this is, by the way, this assignment was created by the department. If there's one thing I would fix is getting away from the fancy speak a little bit. For example, it says, sentence describing a detail from the ad that is part of the rhetorical strategy. That just means, yeah, let me know what things you might discuss in that paragraph. So this paragraph is about color. And here are 2 main points I plan to make about the ad's use of color. And then ask for research. So yes, this is the week where research should begin. And we'll talk about how to do that in the second half in just a little bit. But here I found not just 1, but 2 nifty quotations about not just color, but background color in specific. So I found a quote that said that earth tones, so the Jeep ad, if you remember, that beige, fabric-y kind of background, is definitely an earth tone. And here's a nice quotation that such colors are usually reserved for backgrounds. Well, that's fitting because in the Jeep ad, that's how it's being used. And while these colors may be used for backdrop, quote, neutrals and browns are the epitome of nature. That's also useful because, as we discussed last week, the Jeep ad is riffing on that idea, right? It's playing on that idea that we all connect Jeep to an outdoorsy, independent, rugged, okay? So, and then it asks for some sentences explaining how this research is relevant. So I explain here that neutral colors or earth tones are primarily used for background, just like the Jeep ad, and such colors connect thematically to nature, which is also invoked in the ad. Okay, and you're going to repeat this pattern. Okay, so Roman numeral 3 is body paragraph number 3. This is where you discuss your second thesis point, which for the Jeep is the ad's use of imagery. So here's my topic sentence that clearly makes it obvious to the reader that this section is going to be about imagery. 1 main point I plan to make regarding imagery in the ad. A second main point I plan to make. A piece of relevant research. So I found this nifty quote about the images in this ad. And you repeat again, okay? Body paragraph number 4 is your third thesis point. Topic sentence, 1 main point, second main point. Find relevant research. And then finally the conclusion, paragraph 5. It asks you to rephrase your thesis statement and just come up with a couple sentences on how you think the essay might close. Again, it might change, but I want you thinking about how you might, what kind of final notes you'll find for your essay. Now, here's the thing. The reason why I walk through this with some care, even though some of you are thinking, I get it. This is, let me go. Let me tackle this thing. I already know what to do. Is because if people are either confused or they haven't watched the lecture, they think that this template is like the week 1 worksheet. So they open the blank outline template and think, oh, look, lots of prompts asking for things. I'll just fill it out. And they end up filling it out randomly. And that goes against the idea of an outline, because an outline is a blueprint. It's quite literally a plan for your piece of writing. Here it's a 5-paragraph plan. So if you don't recognize that this is being broken down by paragraphs, an introduction paragraph and what is needed in the introduction paragraph, your 3 body paragraphs and how they connect back to the thesis, knowing what a topic sentence is. Right? So in other words, that's what I was kind of talking about. I don't mean to be the mean instructor who sort of says, watch the lecture. But students who do, they fly through this class, earning A's or B's, lots of A's. Okay, because that's they're sort of not all or nothing assignments, but I think that yeah, if you understand what's being asked of you, you'll tend to do pretty well. But if not, that's when you start guessing and fill this out as if it's a worksheet, but it's not a worksheet. Does this make sense, people? Are most of you clear on kind of like what the goal here is with the outline? If you have questions or if anything seems confusing, you can ask questions in the chat. But are we all pretty good so far in terms of understanding the gist of the assignment? Yes, no, maybe so. And again, you have examples. So you have this past student example that you just have to click on. Okay, good. Thank you, people. And then you have the Jeep example. Listen, worst case scenario, you open up the Jeep example and kind of do the same thing. Just don't do, where's my opening hook again? Just don't do, Call of Duty, the well-known game, practically sells itself. Come up with your own hook. So, but absolutely study the example in terms of this is what I need to do. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come up with my own wording and my own ideas, but yeah, follow the example. Okay, this is why we include examples. So here, I'm going to breeze through some of the slides because we've already talked about this. So here, welcome to week 2. Here, I'm going to show you how quickly I fly through these. Welcome to week 2. I already said that at the beginning. We talked about this last week, okay? The writing process, how each week of the course is devoted to a separate stage of the process. Right now we're in here, research and organizing. We're going to talk about research in just a second, because that's the other thing that's pretty important and probably some of you are nervous about. What does that mean? What should I be researching? What is this thing called APA format, etc.? I do want to pause here. I've already talked about this, yes, the general reader, but I want to give it a concrete example of what it looks like if you don't keep the general reader in mind. So, okay, you have to come up with a opening line, right? Opening sentence, opening hook for your paper. Sometimes I see, not just in the outline, but even in week 3 when it's time to write the essay draft, I will see sentences that appear in the essay like this. In this ad, the guy is on his first day of work. Anybody want to show off and name the commercial that's being described here? While I wait for answers and prizes, let me continue on and say that, good, Jared. Yeah, it's a McDonald's ad, first day. And your prize is my respect. Good job. But here's the point I want to make. Let's say this is Jared's opening sentence. Or Nicholas, he says he's doing the McDonald's ad. Imagine this is Nicholas's opening sentence. Then I have to be the, well, not mean instructor, but honest instructor, frank instructor, and say that this is not taking the general reader into account. Because again, if you're a perfect stranger pulled off the street, your response will be, in what ad? What guy? Right? This assumes that the reader already knows what you're talking about. And by the way, this happens to all of us. It's quite natural. It doesn't happen to me very often because I catch myself when I do it. But yeah, we think the ideas in our head are automatically understandable to other people, but they're not. Like, you know it's a McDonald's ad. I know it's a McDonald's ad, but the general reader doesn't. So a more specific opening line would be something like, in the McDonald's ad, first day, Andy, an anxious millennial, is on his, I want to find a different way to say first day because that's already been used. Well, forget it. I can fix wording later. Is on his initial day of employment, which is really wordy. But okay, I won't worry about there. Spelling error. Okay, can you see the difference? Like, this is a mystery sentence. What ad? What guy? And by the way, if you can't say, but look at the title of my, where'd my ruler go? Okay, hold on. Insert, where is it? It's probably staring me right in the face. Or maybe it's under edit. I'll just jump to the middle. You can't do You can't just say, "Oh, but my paper is titled McDonald's Ad Analysis Essay," which is a lousy title, but okay, right? In other words, the title can't do the work of your sentences. Your prose, which is just a fancy word for your sentences, have to be able to stand on their own. Okay. Um, a good way to test for this is to read your work, your sentences, your paper from the perspective of someone who is not you, and do it honestly. Like pretend you're just some Jane Doe, some Joe Schmo who has accidentally stumbled upon your paper. Read it from that person's perspective. Can you read that paper from start to finish and never be confused? Okay. In other words, you sort of have to hold the reader's hand. No, you don't have to explain that McDonald's is a fast food restaurant. Uh, you don't have to explain what employment is, but you do take a moment to sometimes define things, okay, to help the reader out. So keep that in mind, because I do see that a lot. Back to my slides. So we talked about the intended audience. This is a general audience, so make sure that you do that stranger test. Could a perfect stranger make sense out of it? What is an essay? Essay could actually be anything. Like a YouTube video could be an essay, technically, a video essay. But for this class, it's obviously a more traditional definition, which is a short piece of nonfiction writing on a particular subject. And it is short. We're talking about my Jeep essay is just under 3 pages. Like it's knocking on the door of 3 pages. And I believe the word count on it is just over 900. We don't give page counts. We just say that it should be between 700 and 1,400 words. I don't think I've ever had a student write 1,400 words. Because if my Jeep essay is 900 words and it's 3 full pages, then 1,400 words, that means we're talking 5, 6 pages. Usually they're in that kind of 3-page neighborhood. Okay, so yeah, it's a short essay. And here's the thing: if you have a solid thesis which has 3 clear discussion points, so for the Jeep essay, color, imagery, tagline. If you think back to the Diet Coke essay from week 1, her 3 thesis points were music. Remember that funky, sexy music? Camera work. The camera work is part of what makes it humorous because it's treating the tall glass of Diet Coke almost like a person's body. And I think language was her third point, that it's playing on the idea of tall, dark, and handsome, usually described to describe a good-looking man, but in this case it's being used to describe the glass of Diet Coke because Diet Coke is aimed at women. Coke Zero, by the way, is aimed at men. That's why Coke Zero exists. It's supposed to be aimed at people like me who don't want Diet Coke or don't like Diet Coke, even though to me Coke Zero tastes just as NutraSweetie as Diet Coke. Okay, but that you don't care about that. Back on topic. We've already talked about this. Essay structure. Introduction. Okay, a beginning. It's amazing how much writing has beginning, middle, and end. Okay, same thing here. An introduction, a middle section. This is where your support comes. This is where, by support, I mean this is where you dive into analysis. Okay, the introduction is not the place to start talking about why the Jeep ad uses this earth tone and fabric-y background. Okay, that doesn't belong in the introduction. And finally, you have a conclusion. This is a general paragraph where you wrap things up. And the conclusion is also not the place to start adding in things that you couldn't cover. Beginning, middle, end. And here's the thing. I don't care that much about ad analysis, something you will never have to do in life. Don't get me wrong. I do think there's value in being able to look at things critically and think about them. But to me, what's much more important here is the writing basics that are taught through this assignment. Because if you can remember these general rules, that writing has a beginning, middle, and end, that we don't jump from idea to idea within a single paragraph, we stay on a single topic. Okay, one topic per paragraph. Even the most basic, you know what? Put it to the test. Next time you get like a letter in the mail or an email from like something official, insurance company or the university, or if you have a job, right, get an inter-office memo. Even these very, very simple forms typically have an introduction. The introduction might be a single sentence. We are writing to inform you about changes to the 401k plan. And then they list those changes. Maybe not in full paragraphs. Maybe they're in bullet points, but one at a time. Not all just mixed together. And then there's some sort of conclusion. Thank you. If you have any questions, please contact someone in human resources. Okay, so even the most simple memo or has that beginning, middle, end structure. So if you can retain that, you'll be fine for any writing task you tackle. Because, yeah, you'll find, I mean, listen, some forms of writing may not have a formal thesis, but they do kind of have a main point or main idea that's clearly communicated before you get into the meat of the document. And yeah, most writing has some sort of closing or conclusion. So that's what we're reinforcing here. This, I'm going to breeze through this because we already talked about this, that the introduction is a general paragraph that sets up the essay, and it typically ends with your thesis. And then the body of the paper is where you develop your ideas. Okay. And the conclusion, kind of like the opposite of the introduction, or echoes the introduction. Okay. It's also a general paragraph that brings things to a close. We talked about this not only last week, but at the beginning of this lecture. Okay. At its most basic, a thesis says something like, the Apple ad uses blank, blank, and blank. Those 3 blanks are filled with your 3 discussion points, your 3 talking points, which will become the topics for your 3 body paragraphs come essay time, which is what this slide reinforces. Again, topic sentence, it's like the thesis for that individual paragraph. It's usually, doesn't have to be, but usually the opening sentence of the paragraph. This is where, again, you get into your main ideas. I mean, basically, let me go. This is best shown through example. So let me go back real quickly. This will take 2 seconds, I promise. What is this? I can get rid of this now. No, where's my essay? Here it is. Okay. So most of you are going to follow a pretty similar structure to what I've done here, which is you have your topic sentence. Okay, this paragraph is about color. First, you're going to describe things. Again, the general reader needs to have these things explained. So I explain the ad's creator has chosen a simple background color of camel mesh. The beige background reminds one of fabric and textiles, a burlap sack, a tawny canvas tent, khaki clothing. The color might also suggest environment, dusty paths, windswept dunes, debris kicked up by the wheels of the Jeep vehicle. Okay, so topic, explanation, description, overview, because the reader, even if they've seen the ad, they may not remember it in such detail. Then we get into, explaining things. Why this color choice is important. Remember in week 1, I said we're trying to answer the question why. Why this color? Why this song? I'm going to use the example of music in just a moment, because the Call of Duty ad uses a very specific song. A famous classic rock song called Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones. I'm going to tell you that is not accident. Okay? I mean, sure, it's chosen because it's well known, it's upbeat, it's energetic, it matches the mood of the ad. All that is true. And yet, there's more. Because any song could have been chosen if they just wanted a famous song that people recognize, it's upbeat and energetic. Why that song? Why Gimme Shelter? If you want to try to answer in the chat, you can take a stab at it. But I have lots of people who choose the Call of Duty essay, which is fine. Usually I have about half the class. So I don't help them and give them the answer, but I do kind of lead them down the path. Why that song? We're going to get to using Call of Duty ad as an example in just a second. But here, let me finish flying through some of these slides. But that's what this slide is explaining. Okay, topic sentence. This is where you explain things, provide research. By the way, the reason why the outline, there are 3 body paragraph sections, and each body paragraph section asks for a quotation. It's because if you have the outline really nicely set up, you've got the skeleton. Okay, you've got the framework for the essay. You've even got your research in place. That means that next week, all you have to do is flesh things out, because you've got all the major, you've got your thesis, you've got your topic sentence, you've got a brief description of the ad, you've got main points you plan to make, you've got your research. You just need to, round things out. Okay. Here, let me get to the next thing. Oh, research. Let's talk about research. Okay, let's spend the rest of the time. And I'm going to get away from these slides. Don't like slides. You need 3 sources, and for one of those sources, yes, it can be this video, pathos, ethos, and logos in advertising. Just do something more interesting with it than just define terms. Pathos is blank. Ethos is blank. Definitions of words is not research. But yeah, you need three sources. So this can be one. You don't have to use it, by the way. I get that question sometimes. Do I have to use this video? I watched it and I didn't care for it. No. Um, my Jeep essay has six sources. So I went a little bit overboard. And none of them are the pathos, ethos, and logos video. Okay, so I just found six sources on my own. Two about color. One that had an interesting quote about just Jeep. And then some other stuff. Okay. So you can use this if you like and find two more, or you can find three sources overall. One should come from the Full Sail Library database. So let's go there. So I'm in Full Sail Connect. I'm trying to. Juan says an analogy of seeking cover during firefights. Okay, yeah, there's something in the lyrics. Yeah, absolutely. The lyrics are about war. But I mean, I'm agreeing. Yes, absolutely. Um, I'll give a hint. Think of when Call of Duty Black Ops is set. Right? Okay, that's all I'm going to say. So if we scroll down to the left here and click on Library, so we're in Full Sail Connect, and then scroll down to Research Databases, you have all these different databases. Okay, EBSCOhost is probably where you should begin. You also have what was formerly known as LexisNexis. It's now called Nexus Uni. Nexus Uni tends to search more kind of accessible, lots of newspapers, general magazines. EBSCOhost does the same, but it also results in more like journals, academic things. A good place to start. Yeah, Juan, good, excellent. I'm not going to read your comment out loud because people will watch this lecture later. I'd like to see them reach the same conclusions. But yes. Okay, so EBSCOhost, and by the way, EBSCOhost is not a database in itself. It's actually an umbrella term that refers to Academic Search Complete, Art and Architecture, Business Source Complete. And you can search all of them at once just by clicking on EBSCOhost and selecting all. So let's use the example of Call of Duty. Okay. So, by the way, I already know what to type to trigger a specific result. It's not going to be that easy. When I said that it took me 8, 10, maybe 12 hours to write the Jeep essay, 3 pages, yeah, like 4 hours was research. It took me 4 hours to find those 6 sources. Why? Because I need to look at this. I might find a website about color, but if it says nothing about earth tones or comments about how beige and brown have a strong connection to nature, right? It's not going to be really very worthwhile. I mean, yeah, I might find a super general comment about how color is important, and that's not wrong. But I was looking for something very, very specific. So please understand, you're not going to come to the Full Sail Library database or even use Google and automatically find your 3 sources. I'm not saying it's going to take 4 hours, but it might take an hour or 2. Okay, so keep that in mind because I already know what to type in to get a specific article I want to find. So Call of Duty, Gimme Shelter, the name of the song. And I get 3 results. 2 of them are off topic. But here's one from Billboard Magazine. So we all know that that's a music magazine. It's called Gimme Sales by Ann Donahue. So it's a play on words, right? The song's called Gimme Shelter. This is called Gimme Sales. You'll get either a PDF or an HTML file. So in this case, it's the text file. And you can see it's really, really short. And at first glance, when I look at this, it doesn't seem to be directly providing anything that helps to explain why did the ads creators want that song by the Rolling Stones. Why that song? Why Gimme Shelter? Why didn't they just pick some other super famous song that's super popular and is upbeat? I would argue, though, that maybe there's something that could be used here that's tangential, meaning maybe I could still find another quote that helps answer those questions. But there is something interesting about, for example, the vice president for music affairs for Activision flew to New York to get permission to use the song. Even showed it to the Rolling Stones to get their approval as well. Like, okay, that's not explaining the why question. It's not helping absolutely support our analytical case, our analysis, but it is interesting, right? Clearly they wanted this song, not just any song. They didn't want, I don't know, Hey Jude by the Beatles. They didn't want, I'm trying to think of famous songs from long ago, the Bee Gees, Staying Alive. They wanted this song. So yeah, I think I could use information from here, even though there's probably stronger information out there. By the way, okay, so one source should come from the library database. The other source can come from Googling, but there's some things you should stay away from. So no Wikipedia, no IMDb, no biography.com, none of these encyclopedia-like sources. I think it's fine to begin there. Okay, so for example, here, let me just get another window open and type in "gimme shelter." Okay, so let's say I go to the Wikipedia entry. Yeah, Wikipedia itself, we don't quote. Not because Wikipedia is always bad. Sometimes you can see that a Wikipedia entry seems to actually be pretty well written and seems to be written by people who know something. Um, but still, there are other times where, yeah, you can kind of tell that it's terribly written. Plus, like I said, it's an encyclopedia, so it's just strictly factual. But that doesn't mean you can't skip down to the references and find something quality. So here's Jan Wenner. He's the editor of Rolling Stone. Jagger remembers. Have no idea if there's anything good in there or not. I'd have to read it. Keith Richards recalls making Gimme Shelter. Mick Jagger tells the story behind Gimme Shelter. So maybe in one of these sources, and they're all from trustworthy sources, Ultimate Classic Rock. Well, I don't know how awesome that is, but you once you get there, you can kind of tell. Is it some 13-year-old's blog? Kid lives in his basement with his parents. Rolling Stone obviously is well known. Okay, so if you're ever unsure, just ask me about the quality of a site. But yeah, you can use the references, but not just Wikipedia itself. That's kind of, I don't know, too simple. Now, here's the thing. So I've got this. I'm going to type this into your chat. It's called projectapa.info. And you might want to click on this link and bookmark it. Those people who are watching this lecture, you might just want to type in projectapa.info and bookmark this as well. This website was created by a fellow Full Sail English instructor, and what I like about this site is it focuses mostly on the basics, okay, of APA. And here's a promise I'm going to make to you, okay? I don't think it's fair to grade you too harshly on APA when we've got 10 minutes left in this lecture. What I'm going to tell you is that I'll take it easy on the APA grade for the outline. There is 20 points given for both the research that you found and for it being an APA format. I will go easy on APA format, but I want you to make your best college try. Okay? Pardon the pun. And by that, I mean you can either go to the JEEP example. Okay, so this is the essay. The completed JEEP outline, and just imitate. Okay, so for example, here I include a quotation. See, it's in quotation marks. And you can see that right after the quotation, author's last name, comma, year, comma, page or paragraph number. Now, why do I say page or paragraph number? Because think to the Billboard article we just looked at, Gimme Sales. The one about the vice president who flew to New York to get permission, blah, blah, blah. That's just one page, right? The actual magazine appeared in it was probably maybe 2 pages. Or not, I don't know. But yeah, not all documents have separate page numbers. So if it's a 1-page document, you just count the paragraphs. That's what happens here. Okay, so here's another quote, direct quote, and in parentheses, author's last name, comma, year, comma, paragraph, because this was a 1-page document. So if I go back to this guy here, if I end up quoting something from here, just count the paragraphs. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's in paragraph 5. In general, if you were using the Full Sail library database, HTML files are going to be single pages, so you have to count the paragraphs. If it's a PDF, it's going to be a exact photocopy, right, of the pages the pages of the magazine or newspaper or journal. In those cases, you would use the page number. So you have the JEEP outline you can study and just imitate, right? So here's another one. Quotation, and then followed by last name, year, page, or paragraph number. Next week is going to be entirely devoted to APA. I joked about this last week that it may not be the sexiest lecture, but I think it's going to be useful because I will open up a blank document and teach you how to make your essay look like, wherever it went. It was here. Here it is. No, that's not it. Here, let me close this. Okay. I got the essay open somewhere. Here in the control panel. There it is. Right. So next week, I'm going to show you how to create the header, the cover page, right? Centering, how to insert page numbers, how to set up paragraphs and spacing, in-text citations, references. I'm going to do this all in real time. Okay, so you are going to get a full body workout in terms of APA next week. But because, I don't have the time to go into it this week, I'm going to take it easy on the grading. But you have to promise me that you're going to either study the examples in the Jeep essay, or outline. And same thing for references. At the very end, you have to include a list of references. So just do the same thing. Author's last name, comma, first initial, a date in parentheses, the title of the article or piece, the name of the publication, italicized, and then retrieve from. Okay, so just imitate the examples. This is also why I mentioned projectapa.info. For example, if you just go to in-text citations, the very first guy here, formats of quotation, just imitate. Because what I'm going to explain next week is that one of the confusing things about APA is that there's always two ways to do things. For example, you can mention the author's name in your actual sentence, like according to Newman or according to John Newman. And if you do so, you immediately have to put a year in parentheses. Then deliver your quotation, and at the very end, put a page or paragraph number. Or you can find your own natural way to lead into the quotation and just save everything for the end. Now, because this is confusing, it's like choose your own adventure. Am I going to use the author's name in my sentence or not? My advice is just choose a format and do the same thing. You have the essay outline. You have projectapa.info. And here's the same thing for not quoting directly. Okay, so saying things in your own words, but the information comes from a source, so you still need to cite it. Same rules. If you mention the author's name in your actual sentence, the year has to appear in parentheses. And you don't need a page or paragraph number because you're not quoting anything directly. Nobody has to look for a specific part of the article for where you took the quote from. And ditto here. Or you can just find your own natural way to say things in your own word and then cite at the very end with an author's last name and year. But already you're probably thinking this is confusing. I have no idea what he's talking about. Well, imitate. Okay, that's my promise to you. I'm not going to take off massive points if APA isn't perfect. Where I will take off points is if people just make things up. Okay, so that's my promise, is that I won't be super nitpicky about, has he indented properly? Has she followed the special capitalization rules? Has she? No, I want to see something that looks like you're trying your best at APA without having been completely introduced to it. By the way, I think your textbook chapters also cover APA. Does this make sense? Do people feel confident that they can either look at the Jeep outline or projectapa.info and imitate? Same thing for references. Find your type of reference. If it's a website, if it's a book, if it's a newspaper or magazine from a database, and just find your example. So if you found something in the library database, actually this is from, like, you Google something interesting. Here you go. Just do the same. If it comes from a database, here, just do the same. Okay, or here, a DOI. You'll recognize a DOI because it'll be a number like this. But if there isn't one, just imitate. If you're not sure how to handle, for example, multiple authors, it covers those things too, or includes examples. Like here, there are two authors, it looks like. No, three. Beck, Hellmuller, and Aschbacher. Okay. I'm not getting feedback. Do people understand what I'm saying? Do you feel confident that you can give it your best try and that next week we'll get into the nitty-gritty details? Okay, because where I will take off points is when people do things like this. Here, let me just open a blank document. So let's make up a quote. Here, let me zoom in. So, according to John Smith, quote goes here. We just had to imagine this as a quotation, okay? End quote. And then they just make something up, like sometimes students put in web addresses like www.blah.com. 2009. No, that's not an APA citation. Or making up references, like, again, just putting in a web address. Or just, okay, there's an author, his name is John Smith. Year, month, we'll just say September 2008. I misspelled September. And the title goes here of the article. We're going to put in quotation marks, even though that's not APA format, right? So if I see that you're just making it up, so yeah, study either the Jeep example, projectap.apa.info. You have a student example of an outline, so you can study her example. You have the McGraw-Hill readings, which I think cover APA this week. So you have multiple places you can look to. And if you're really ambitious, you can also just Google. There's lots of APA information out there. So yeah, I'm not going to make a big deal about if things aren't absolutely perfect, but I don't want to see just making it up, because next week we will get into APA in detail. The entire session is going to be devoted to APA. So we're actually, I just finished under 8 p.m. So questions, comments, anything. If you're very clear with what we've gone over, again, I'm not going to force you to stay. You are welcome to leave and enjoy the rest of your night. I thank you for attending. I'll encourage you to show up next week, even though APA may not sound super exciting, but it will be useful. Really. Hate to brag, but no other instructor devotes an entire lecture to making sure students, because again, I'll open up a blank document and you can follow right along. Right? So, cool. I'm going to field questions if people have them. But if not, again, you're free to go. I'm trying to think. Did I forget to mention anything? I mean, well, it's not something I forgot. I did mention it, but okay. So the outline for each of the 3 body paragraphs, it says, where's the research thing? Sentence incorporating research quote. So yes, for the outline, it really is asking for a quotation and showing that you can incorporate it. So that's what this means, right? So like, I don't just drop the quote in, I actually lead into it. So, because if you can do that, if you can imitate the examples and practice, I'm confident that you have a reading about how to incorporate research naturally. So you're not just dropping quotations out of the blue. We're going to talk about that next week too, how to naturally incorporate a quotation. Because a quotation must fit within, you should be able to read a paragraph including the research and never stumble. So, for example, the GPAD's use of optical illusion is powerful. We're talking about the animal imagery. And this strategy would not work if it were applied to a Ford or Lexus ad. The ad encourages viewer interaction for, quote, when rotated, each of the vintage drawn animals becomes another species, leaving the viewer to choose which one he or she prefers, playing on their perceptions, end quote. There's my citation. And then as you can see, I sort of play. Not only do I lead into it, the ad encourages interaction for, quote, but I also use the language at the end, playing on their perceptions. And then perception is important, since the ad also wants to create a positive perception of the Jeep product. So this is what we're aiming for, that leading into the quotation, leading out of the quotation, and how the research fits within the overall paragraph is natural. Like you hardly even notice that research is appearing because it's that natural to just keep reading. We're going to get into that next week as well. But again, for the outline, you just have to do the basics, okay? Try your best to write something that leads into the quote or leads out of the quote. And most importantly, though, including the citation. Come essay time, you don't absolutely need a direct quote. You can paraphrase, which is saying things in your own words, but because it comes from outside source, you do have to cite it. We'll talk about that as well. But we do want people to actually find specific information. So that's why I'd ask for specific quotations. But come essay time, if you don't want to use a quotation and just want to paraphrase, that's an option as well. Okay. Questions, comments? Are we good? Not good? It doesn't have to be limited to this assignment. You can ask anything about the class or week 1. Charmaine says, can you use the same ad as last week? Yes, you should be using the same ad as last week. If you choose the McDonald's ad or the Apple ad or Salvation Army, right? There are, I think, 7 or 8 ads to choose from. You're using it all month because we're building toward a single short essay. Last week it was brainstorming, getting your ideas on the page, noticing interesting things in the ad, and hopefully developing a clear thesis that lists 3 important things that you noticed in the ad. And then that gets carried over to this assignment. That's why I said everybody needs a working thesis, because you're going to carry that thesis over here so you can complete this 5-paragraph blueprint. Right? And if you need to watch or rewatch the week 1 lecture, please do, because that covered a lot of information. What is ad analysis? What to look for in an ad? We looked and brainstormed, right? We looked at 3 ads and thesis statements. So, yeah, it's not that tough of a course, but it can become difficult if people either don't reach out for questions, or for some people, not many, but don't watch the lectures. I wasn't suggesting that about you, Charmaine. You asked a good question. Yes, you're choosing your ad and using it the entire month. That's why I said in week 1, choose an ad you are comfortable with. Don't choose the Chico ad, the hardest ad in the bunch, if you don't know what to say about it. So yeah, you're using it all month. Just took a sip from my Coke. I'm going to stop the recording so that people are watching at home. Thank you so much. I'm stopping the recording now.